Hey everybody, this is Adam, otherwise known as Golden Flame. Some time ago I had kind of spitballed the idea that maybe sometime I'll do a video that shows off some of the tools I use, and it probably won't be very long because there's not a whole lot to them, but there was a more positive response to the idea than I had been expecting, so I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. And so this is the map editor. This was the first code that I wrote for the Dark Unknown. This was kind of the first 3 sets of code that I wrote for the Dark Unknown, as I threw out entirely the first 2 drafts of the map editor. So arguably about the first 6 months of work on the game got thrown out. It happens. This version integrates more tightly with the code for the game itself. So like the code that renders the map up there is more or less the same code that the game actually uses. Here we are. This is what we start with. Over here is, pick what I'm painting with. Down here is pick how I'm painting it. And so we're going to start out, we're going to make this map 32 by 32, a lot of nostalgia. And so here we go. This map is going to be the vault. The vault is a dungeon, arguably. The vault is a place that was built by previous dynasties and has not been in use for some time, but eventually you need something that's been sitting in here for obscene amount of time, years. And the king says, well, all right, I know how to get in. It's just, really dangerous and treacherous and all that crap, so we've never done it. But hey, you're an adventurer now, so why don't you go check it out? And you get sent to the vault. The vault is in a zone of the map that's mostly occupied by trolls and things like it. This is one of the many nods and half jokes that I make to my favorite board game of all time, which is Magic Realm, which contains a treasure location called the Vault that is guarded by a tremendous troll. There's another treasure location that is also a reference on the other continent, and internally in my code, the default damage levels for spells at least are negligible, light, medium, heavy, and tremendous, which is how damage works in that board game. It's long out of print and kind of hard to get into. It was Avalon Hill at its finest, which means it's 8 million chits and 400 million rules, and I love it. So here we go. I'm using rectangle to draw lines. There's a lot of things that this could do that I had not bothered making it do because I know how to work around them. And there's only so many more maps I have to make before I'm kind of done. So, that's a thing. One thing that I would do if I were to, make this for public consumption or anything might be make it automatically switch back to point whenever I change what I'm drawing, because the frequency with which I've gone, oh, I'm going to add a fireplace, oh, whoops, I have added 16 fireplaces, is more than I would really like to admit. But, it happens. I had a reason to have the entrance point be on the west, but thinking about it, I have more of a reason to make it on the south. Now, the trick here, as was true for the Ultima series in general, and so, for the early games, and so we're used to it. But here we go. You're looking at it from the top down, but you're looking at each thing as though you're looking at it from the front. So the reason I moved it is this place is going to be a pain in the ass to get into. So we've got some magically locked doors. And then behind those, we have portcullises. Behind that, we've got more doors. And those doors side by side look a little goofy when they're on top of each other. They look side by side anymore. It kind of looks like one is on top of the other, and that's not what's going on here. Also, my sense of symmetry is going to go nuts here because there's 7 on this side and 8 on this side. So by God, yes, I actually do this. I am going to shrink the map just a little bit so that the damn thing is symmetric. There we go. Feeling better about it already. So this is the vault. And I think what I'm going to do actually is let's make more of this. There we go. And then let's say, let's make some of the inside structure. So it's a vault. So it's going to have some vault chambers. That doesn't have to be a double. So here we go. Now, that doesn't quite work. What we're going to do is just because I really have no reason for the chambers to be overly large. So this place is going to be a loot pinata for the player once they can get in. You're sent here to get an item that will let you get to the higher circles of magic. It's a lost art. That's one of the key plot points of the mid-game, is that you need spells beyond the highest level that anyone in the world remembers how to cast. And to get to that point, you're going to have to come here and get a thing. And so that's exciting. So I figure, you know, there's important stuff behind magically locked doors. There's less important stuff behind locked doors. This is all kind of a spitball thing. This is how I make a lot of my adventure sites, the dungeons and towers and such, is I kind of go in with a vague idea of what it's going to be like, and then I just start putting stuff down. You know, you'll have the key to one of these doors because you're sent in to specifically get the amulet you need. The other one, if you've managed to figure out how to magically open magic locked doors, you can get in, you can get the stuff. I haven't decided what's going to be behind there yet, but I'm sure it'll be good, whatever it is. I mean, at this point I can just put a bunch of chests in there, and then down the road I'll define the loot set for those chests. And I'll set it up. One thing that I've done is I can make any given chest fundamentally only really lootable once. This is to prevent optimal play from being find whatever dungeon has the best money to combat ratio and just farm it for a while. So any given chest, it also allows me to put important plot items in chests without letting you get more than one of it. This also works for anything else that's lootable. If something is stashed in a bookshelf or stashed in a footlocker or something, all of them have the same code attached for this particular aspect of things. So, you know, the chests, if you've opened the chest before and then left the dungeon and come back in, if you open it again, there'll be something like, you know, 2d4 gold in it, and that's it. There are some chests that I have deliberately not applied this to. They'll just always have their full amount of loot. You know, something's on the 3rd level of a dungeon and you come back and fight your way down there again. Sure, you can get some stuff. And of course, the loot dropped by monsters will always be full value. So you can still come in and actually farm the monsters. It just lets me, you know, have chests strewn about the dungeons that presumably Elminster placed or something. Can I mention him without getting sued? I don't know. But the vault is old, so I'm going to say a big chunk of this section over here has fallen down, and there's some weathering. And the trick with this, I'm actually going to add whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. That's a kind of alright, because the player can never see that. But let's put this back here. This is what I meant to do. Haha. Except that I didn't mean it to be dirt. But now you see how that works, and that's how I fix it. And I'm gonna, right. Remember that screwing myself with rectangle thing I mentioned before? Yeah, well, there it was again. So, tactically, you know, it doesn't really matter if I leave these as hills because it's not like the player can get there, but if they cast the pier spell, then you want it to look like you want it to look like. The main reason I did this is so you're a little farther from this room when you first enter the zone, and so you have a little more time to prepare before the monsters come out and start trying to jump you. So I only actually ever got around to putting a couple of the monsters in this, so I added this button instead. Basically, if I define any game object, monsters, items, whatever, and I haven't gotten around to adding it to these graphical menus, I can just punch them in here. So let's do that. Let's say that they've learned how to make fire. And then fundamentally, I don't want you to be able to go in through here, fight a bunch of stuff, and then get into the vault without having to have gone through the main entrance. So I'm going to argue that the monsters in here were like, we don't want whatever else lives in the vault to come into our little party over here. So they piled up some rocks in front of the door. That's kind of me being a jerk, but I really don't want that shortcut to be able to be taken. You need to get the key to go in here. Now, granted, you're not likely to come here without having been told where it is in the first place, because this is a pretty out-of-the-way location. But the internet exists. People will figure out that this is here. And if the game is popular enough for anyone to actually make a walkthrough page for it, that's a thing that'll happen. So we've got some monsters to fight. Let's add one more. Let's add the closest thing this will have to a boss. Can't put him back here because then he can't actually get out and fight. So he'll be back here. So we've got an Enten Sorcerer, and he's in the back, so he has plenty of time to cast spells at you before you can get up there and kill him. And, you know, these rocks block movement, but they won't block spells or arrows, so you guys can spend a while pinging each other. So there's that. That'll be some loot. And then the thing you're looking for will probably be in here. And because reasons, there's going to be a couple mirrors. They'll be broken, but I haven't gotten around to making graphics. I've got graphics for broken mirrors. That's not what I mean. I haven't. There's no unique object that is a broken mirror. It is a mirror with the broken property attached to it. So in code for this zone, I'm going to add on map load, break the mirrors. Because it's not the player breaking the mirrors, it will not cost you karma. And so we're going to say we've got some unlit light sources in some of these, just so the player can go turn those on if the player wants to. And by and large, I don't really have a specific thing that I want to put in these besides the amulets, and I'm probably going to put those in chests anyway. So I do this every time. Where the heck is my chest graphic? Here you are. So chests not being NPCs or players do not reflect in the mirrors. There's no really good in-game explanation for this. It's just a thing. So one thing that I can do, let's make this room a little more interesting. Now, this is terrain. Everything else that I had put in here are features which live on top of the terrain. So because I'm lazy, I need to explicitly hit refresh in order to make it redraw everything. So here we go. We've got one of the rooms in the vault. The other rooms I may not actually populate right now because it's frankly not that interesting to watch me populate them. So here we've got the map details. Map name is map name is vault. That's the internal name. This name is what shows at the top of the screen while you're in here. Now here's an interesting question. It's technically not a dungeon, but it's sort of a dungeon. I'm going to give it cave music for now. The default map that you exit to is usually the main map, the Dark Unknown map. And I'm going to have to open it up in my text editor to remind myself what the coordinates are that you'd be coming at. Now, this isn't really used, but yes, the vault is at 81,128. So, and you enter this map at, I'll say you come in over here, 1634. Is everyone overwhelmed with interest in this? It doesn't wrap. It's not linked to anything. I may wind up giving it a basement. At the moment, it's bright. I'm going to consider that. The scale thing is whether or not it's a zoomed in map or not. And the world maps are the only ones that are not to scale. This might have these, this will have an on enter script to break the mirrors. We'll just call it that. Return map. What this means is if you cast the return spell while you're in this map, it will take you to the entrance. And this map is not underground, which is currently used because I made it so that you get different footstep sounds if you're underground. And so I had to go through all of my maps and to find whether the damn things are underground or not. Now, the other thing that we can do with this is how to edit features like the chests and NPCs. This is a troll. It doesn't need a name. You're not going to talk to the troll. Most of this stuff doesn't matter. But this is going to be in an NPC band. And yeah, I could pick one of these to specify which graphic for the troll to use. The difference between these graphics is just their animation patterns. That way you don't really get like a Mickey Mouse Club thing going where everybody's cheerleading in sync. But the reason for this is because I've got some NPCs, you know, like Townsfolk Mage. I changed the graphics around so they could have a red robe on or they could have a blue robe on. And before I added this, it would randomly pick this whenever you entered a town, which meant you could leave a town and come back in immediately, and everybody's gotten changed into new clothes, and some of them have had their skin color change. That was awkward, so I added a thing. So is that this one over here? Yeah. So I'm going to put all these guys in an NPC band. Now, I'm going to be honest, usually I probably wouldn't bother doing it this way, even though I set it up so that, specifically so that I could. I would probably just put one of these in an NPC band, and then I would just manually copy-paste it in the code once I saved it. But, you know, that's fine. Nothing to edit on this time. Okay, well, that's an interesting... That's a bug from my putting the terrain on top of the features. So I think what I'm going to have to do is save the map and load it again. But that's okay. You're not missing out on anything by not seeing that. So now you can see, very exciting. This is all in JavaScript, just like the game. But do you know what JavaScript cannot do? The thing that JavaScript can't do is save a file. You can download a file from a server, but JavaScript code can't generate something and then save it somewhere. So to save the map, I have to do this. And then I have to view source. And then I have to copy-paste this. And then I wind up with it in my code base the weird way. And you can't currently see that because I'm not streaming my code base, my text editor, but you're still not missing much. It's this. So this is what code looks like for locations. I took this idea from Nazgul. Basically, I just wanted to be able to make little edits to the terrain of maps without needing to bring it up in the map editor and make the maps something that you could look at by eye and have a vague idea of what it looked like. In case you're curious, the reason for all of this padding of the mountains at the edges here is because as you approach the edge of the map, the character leaves the center as you're walking. And if you're not actually approaching the edge of the map deliberately, if you can't get to the edge of the map by going that way, it's a little confusing for the player to have you start going off center. So ideally, I pad the maps. So here we are with this. Everything else looks all right. And so that's the map editor. There's really not a lot else to see with it. So I hope that was at least somewhat interesting. I will probably go ahead and trim a lot of dead space out of this. I'm not sure how long I've been going on this, but probably longer than anyone is interested in listening. So I'll go and open this up in Windows Movie Editor, whatever the heck that program's called, which I probably will need to re-download since I had to wipe my computer since I made all of the Kickstarter videos. And sometime, maybe later today, maybe next week or something, I'll do another really short video that shows off the conversation editor, which I also wrote in JavaScript. But here we are. This is the main tool that I use aside from just cranking out code in UltraEdit. So thanks for watching. You've got some minor spoilers into the vault now. Congratulations. And I will see you around. Cheers.